That's the advantage. So many choices with technology. So I welcome all of you to Unity South Twin Cities this final Sunday of January. Can you believe it? 5 Sundays in January, and here we are, already the 5th one, and closing out the first month of the year. So I welcome all of you who have come out on this cold morning. And for those of you that are joining us online, I assume you're in a nice, cozy place at home, so that's great. I give thanks for our friends who bring their interest and their intention to support Unity South by joining us online. Some are friends from our very service who, for one reason or another, need to be online today. But then we also have good friends like our wonderful artist Jade in the Tampa Bay area, who takes snippets of our service every week and puts them onto Facebook for us, and that's her volunteer contribution. So even people that live thousands of miles away can still volunteer to help. So we do give thanks. For those present in the sanctuary, please silence your phone and any other device that might make a chirp or a tweet or a TikTok during our service. I'm grateful to have the wizardry and talent of Judy Moen as she organizes our special guest musicians. And today she's brought our friend David Malmberg here to delight us with voice and guitar. We have our live stream team here, I think the full team. Tyler on sound, Joe is on computer camera, and making all these things happen. So let's give them a little applause. This is still new. You may have noticed something different if you've been here in recent weeks, and our TV is no longer sitting on a table, but is properly and securely mounted to the wall. So I'm grateful for the good folks at the Geek Squad that came in and got this accomplished. It took us 4 attempts through winter weather, the wrong items being ordered and so forth, but with confidence it finally came together. And so we are grateful for that. So now, without further ado, I invite you to stand as we sing our opening song, Good Morning World. And I invite another new volunteer, Nicole, this morning to come lead us with enthusiasm. So please stand. That's a fun song. Every time we sing it, you have to put up with me doing the little bluebird. But my friends back in school used to say, "Oh, James, you are so easily amused." I like little fun things like that. So, I invite you now to acknowledge one another silently or speak out loud. I behold the Christ in you. The divine in me sees the divine in you. You can choose the exact words, but be sure that you get the intention to recognize that spark within you and to see it in others. Let's acknowledge one another. And now I invite you to turn to the back of the room, the camera over the entry door, and let's welcome our friends we don't physically see, we have to feel them with our hearts. Thank you for being here today, and let's affirm together. We behold the Christ in you. You are of great value and you bring blessing by joining us in this service. Thank you. And now it is my pleasure to invite Yvette Trotman to the platform to lead us in our daily word and our community prayer.
I love our opening song, Good Morning World, Good Morning Universe, Good Morning Unity South. Today, January 29th, the word for today is prosperity. I broaden my perspective of prosperity. When I think of prosperity, I may think of financial wealth or my possessions. I may even feel tempted to compare my life to someone else's and feel as though I come up short in comparison. Today, my understanding of prosperity grows. Feeling safe and secure in who I am is prosperity. Knowing I am gloriously made in the image of God is priceless. Realizing the abundance of the natural world and partaking of it is a gift. All of these are wonderful reminders I reside in the kingdom of heaven. The more I appreciate the riches of the material world, the more I am my greatest prosperity, my oneness with God. Look at the birds of the air. They neither sow nor reap, nor gather into barns, and yet your heavenly Father feeds them. Are you not of more value than they? Matthew 6:26. As we take a breath and honor that we are all prosperous, we prepare for today's community prayer. As we prepare for our community prayer, let us take a cleansing breath, a deep cleansing breath. Go within and quiet our thoughts. Create a space that's comfortable for you and acknowledge the value and the power of us praying together in community. Know that with prayer, we are helping transcend our human limitations of time, beliefs, illusions, and challenges. And we prepare our minds today for receiving God's presence. We begin with our affirmation. Every part of my body, mind, and spirit celebrates divine life. I honor divine life, nourishment for my body. I honor divine ideas, flourishing in my mind. I honor the fullness of life in my dreams and my intentions. I command every thought to celebrate divine life and thrive. Today, I shine the light of divine life throughout every cell in my body. All of God and all of divine life is fully present within and around me. I thrive in the healing stream of divine life. My body responds to the call upon divine life to renew, refresh, re-energize, and revitalize the whole of me. In the harmony of prayer, my heart beats to the rhythm of God. My pulse of infinite life is a continued flow. I attune to divine intelligence within every part of my body. With each breath, I celebrate my capacity to heal and to thrive each day, nourishing my divine life. I take this time to acknowledge the prayers Unity South has received and behold and affirm the truth within these individuals. And those of us here today, we know that Spirit is working in the lives of the requests we've received and in the lives of all of us, as we further awaken to the presence of God as our health, our supply, and our sense of purpose. We are still, and we know, as we are poised to receive the blessing and feeling that is expressed in the model of our prayer taught by Jesus Christ. And we sing the Lord's Prayer together. Prayer chaplain will be available after this service to pray with you in the back of the sanctuary. Thank you.
Don't go anywhere yet. We have these beautiful creative announcement slides, but I have to point out that I will be going out of town this week, and Yvette Trotman, prayer chaplain and individual extraordinaire, is going to be giving the lesson next week, and she's continuing my theme of soul courage, but with her unique take. And so I'm going to be online wherever I am, watching and learning.
Appreciate that. Thank you.
Good morning. Do we have a microphone? You know, I have noticed in life that there are many that believe in a soul's code. And I've also noticed in life that there are few that oftentimes have an opportunity to demonstrate soul courage. And when that happens, others will look at that person and say, that is a person of vision. And that's what this song is about today. He rode easy in the saddle, he was tall and lean. First you thought nothing but a streak of mean could make a man look so downright strong. But when look in his eyes and you knowed you was wrong. He was a mountain of a man, and I want you to know he could preach hot hell or freezing snow. He carried a Bible in a canvas sack. The folks just called him the Reverend Mr. Black. He was poor as a beggar, but he moved like a king. Sometimes in the evening I could hear him sing. I gotta walk that lonesome valley. I gotta walk it by myself. Oh, nobody else can walk it for me. I gotta walk it by myself. If ever I could have thought that this man in black was soft and had any yellow up his back, I gave that notion up the day a lumberjack came in and it wasn't to pray. Yeah, he kicked open the meeting house door, then he cussed everybody up and down the floor. And then when things got kind of quiet in the place, he walked up and cussed in the preacher's face. He hit that reverend like the kick of a mule. And to my way of thinking, it took a pure fool to turn the other cheek to that lumberjack. But that's what he did, the Reverend Mr. Black. He stood like a rock, a man among men, and he let that lumberjack hit him again. And then with a voice just as kind as could be, he cut him down like a big oak tree. What he said, you gotta walk that lonesome valley. You gotta walk it by yourself. Oh, nobody else can walk it for you. You gotta walk it by yourself. It's been many years since we had to part, and I guess I learned his ways by heart. I can still hear his sermons ring down in the valley where he used to sing. I followed him, yes sir, and I don't regret it. And I hope that I'll always be a credit to his memory, because I want you to understand, the Reverend Mr. Black was my old man. You gotta walk that lonesome valley. You gotta walk it by yourself. Oh, nobody else can walk it for you. You gotta walk it by yourself.
Thanks, Dave. Thanks, David. I don't know exactly how to follow that, except to note that chorus. He gave us that wonderful Western image, walking that lonely, lonesome valley by yourself. But that's really just a way of saying whatever your intention is in life, whatever is most important to you, you do walk that lonesome valley, because no one can do it for you. You have to fulfill that intention your way. And it is kind of a wonderful lead-in to my closing this week of a 3-week series. This is our conclusion. We looked on January the 15th at the extraordinary man who walked a lonesome valley, Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. And then last week, we looked at another singular individual, Charles Fillmore, co-founder of our unity movement. And then today we turn to someone that has been a great inspiration to my life, and that is Dr. Rudolf Steiner. He's a contemporary of Charles Fillmore, living about the same time, born in the mid-19th century, doing a great deal of his work in the 20th century, as the Fillmores did. And he walked a lonesome valley too, because his work was so powerful. And tens of thousands gathered around him in his European setting. And they were able to launch initiatives or projects I'll speak of in a few moments. But he walked a unique, lonesome valley because so many questioned him, and some, like Adolf Hitler, conspired to kill him and tried to shoot him on stage as he was delivering a lecture, because he was empowering the individual so forcefully. And that was something a leader like Hitler could not abide. So let's look at where we've been. As we started that first week, looking at King as a man with a dream. With a dream. He had a dream for humanity, for the people close to him in his black community, in the South, in his Southern Baptist tradition, the tradition I myself came out of. And he realized, and he encouraged the people, we cannot walk alone. We cannot walk alone. And though we often think of him as a leader in the civil rights movement, as a leader in social justice. To me, his dream was even larger than that, because he encouraged people to follow the example of Jesus Christ, to do unto others as you would have them do to you. Or he would speak of the greatest commandment according to Jesus: love your God and love your neighbor as yourself. He taught us this connection that we all have as God's children, as God's family. Whatever our social background may be, whatever our place in the world, Dr. King strove to bring people together for a purpose, pursue a dream. Then we turned to Charles Fillmore, co-founder of Unity, and I gave him the title, I Have a Prayer. And I reminded you of the famous quotation, if you're a student of Unity, you have to learn it at some point along the way. As a minister in training, I certainly had to know Charles' story, his awakening, his turning point. Well, I reminded you he was first amazed and inspired by his own wife's healing. That's why we call Myrtle Fillmore the mother of Unity, because she began the process. And Charles saw such a change in her health, in her purpose, in her focus. He said, I got to figure this out. But he described himself as a 19th century businessman, and he was going to look at the spiritual thing with some good logic. And so he began by studying traditions of spirituality throughout the ages around the world. It was really quite remarkable for a man in Kansas City, in the heartland, in the late 19th century, to have been exposed to so much of the spiritual wealth of humanity through time and around the globe. But he heard a lot of different ideas about God, about God's will for humanity, about our place in creation. And so he said, in all this babble, all these teachers and ministers and gurus, in all this babble, I will go to headquarters. Haven't you heard people say, I'm going straight to the boss? But using his logical mind, he said, if this God they all talk about is spirit, and every human being, including himself, was a living spirit, a creation of God, then somehow we can communicate, or this whole religion thing is a fraud. But he didn't just expound on it. He did something about it. He said, I am willing every day to devote time to sitting in the silence, being willing to connect to this creative spirit. And he said he did it for a long time. I believe it was a couple of years before he felt any result, any connection. And then he claimed to feel a tingling in his body, almost like electrical current. And he began to be inspired by great spiritual ideals. Or he began to understand the words that Jesus offered. What did it mean to say, the Father and I are one? It meant the connection he was beginning to experience. He went on, he and his wife, developing the movement. They said people first in their neighborhood in Kansas City, and then later throughout the city started gathering around in prayer circles. They taught the power of prayer because it was the essence of making this connection. The individual with the infinite, with the source of all. As people gathered around them, they eventually realized they needed a home, a physical building to be constructed for their work. Why, that's just like Unity South 30 years ago, putting this building up so that we would have a home in which to gather, in which to learn together, pray together, and have fun together. Don and Sue will see to that after the service. I know they've got great goodies downstairs, so we can have some fun and enjoy one another's company. But all that built up around the Fillmores, when they put up that first building in 1906, Charles invited everyone who chose to write an affirmation, a statement of truth for this new building, this new home being constructed for Unity. He invited everyone to submit their name and their positive statement. He had 19,000 of those that were sealed in the cornerstone there in Kansas City. By that time in 1906, the prayer ministry still existing today, we call it Silent Unity. It is an organization willing to pray with people 24/7 all over the globe. Well, more than 100 years ago, they entered that new building. And you know what? There were already 10,000 people signed up as members of Silent Unity. The numbers just grew by leaps and bounds because it wasn't that Charles had magic or was a wizard, but somehow he communicated to people the power of making this connection. And although he spoke of turning within, going within, doing your inner work, he also taught that as you did that inner development, it opened you to see others as your neighbor. You were connected to other people because you could not realize this presence and power within yourself and not know that it was in everyone. And so after one of their early meditation groups, Charles came out of the meditation and said, Unity. Unity is the name of our work. Why did he choose that word, unity? Well, as he described it, he said, our whole work is about seeing the unity of spirit in all things. That is to recognize the truth of that spark of spirit, of God, the universal impulse of life. You can name it different ways as long as you get the idea of its nature. See it in yourself. See it in others. See that unity of spirit that's all together. Well, now we turn and conclude our series by looking at Dr. Rudolf Steiner. And just to give you just a touch of why this is important to me, we all have those points in our life. We might look back and say, oh, that was a real turn of destiny for me. I was in school about 14 years old, and my art teacher, you know, the art teacher in school always tend to be kind of unique individuals, creative, special. She said one day, I wasn't even driving yet, she said one day, I want to take you to a service at Unity Village, our world headquarters. And I'd never been there for a service, because I went to the Baptist church. And she said, let me take you to a service. So we went to the service. It was an interesting experience. We stayed afterwards for lunch in the famous vegetarian cafe, the oldest vegetarian center in Kansas City, or the Midwest, really, starting in 1905. And then we went to the Unity bookstore. And she said, let me buy this book, The Sermon on the Mount by Emmett Fox. Aha, an early teacher. And then she said, you need to study the work of Rudolf Steiner. Here was one teacher, one individual that put me on the twin paths of my life. For decades, Unity was my spiritual family and community, like we are here. And my study of Steiner was something personal, individual. I couldn't find anyone else in the Midwest doing that, so I was on my own. 30 years later, maybe a little more than 30 years later, I moved to my first church in Syracuse, New York, Unity of Syracuse. And there I came across people who were studying the work of Rudolf Steiner. After all those years, I finally found people I could talk to. And I did. And then eventually in 2012, I spent a year in Switzerland at Steiner's Unity Village, no, Steiner's world headquarters in Switzerland, and had the opportunity to study with many people that had spent their life devoted to his work. So I wanted you to have a little bit of background of why I'm asking you to spend the time in this discussion today. As I said, Steiner was a contemporary of Charles Fillmore, but he did all his work in the language of German and in Middle Europe, specifically Austria, then Germany, then Switzerland. His headquarters is on the Lower Rhine, on the northwest edge of Switzerland, in a town close to the huge city of Basel, Switzerland, the second largest city in Switzerland. His collected work is considered to be the largest collection of life work of any known human being. There are 600 volumes of his material, not counting his architecture, his sculpture, his painting, his founding of the Weleda Company, which produces body care products and medicines all over the world. You can find them right down the street at Fresh Time and Target to this day. He also developed Waldorf education. Our city is unusual to have a major school in Minneapolis and one in St. Paul. He developed communities for those in need of special care of the soul. Isn't that an interesting phrase? Those in need of special care of the soul. These were communities where the staff and residents all lived together and worked together, and they were individuals with certain concerns in this life, such as Down syndrome and other forms of what our society calls limitations. The whole key to Steiner founding those centers, we have the closest one is up in Sauk Center, Minnesota. The whole key was he taught the staff that even though these individuals seem to have a limitation, treat them as the whole and complete spiritual being they are. Find work that they can do in their community so they feel important and that they're contributing to the good of the community. But don't speak down to them. Work side by side with them. Well, thinking, where in the world could I start this discussion of Steiner's enormous work, a work he called, get ready, some people have trouble with this word. He didn't invent it, it's been around for centuries. Anthroposophy. Anthropos means human, and Sophie, wisdom. Anthroposophy was how he described divine wisdom, truth, working through the human being. How we channel the truth of life, of God, of spirit. Well, fortunately, he gave it a slightly easier word, although in German it's not so easy, Geisteswissenschaft. In English, spiritual science. He had many criticisms. How can you put the words spirit and science together? That's an oxymoron. That doesn't make any sense. Well, the best way he described it, that I understand it, is he considered physical and natural sciences use technology, instruments to observe the world. They use microscopes, telescopes, and now we have many more complicated bits of technology, to explore, observe, and measure creation, the earth and the stars. His spiritual science, actually a term Charles Fillmore also used, his spiritual science, he said, is when the individual develops inner capacities of soul where they make themselves the instrument of observation. Through spiritual development, you gain a capacity to understand the world and observe it in ways that are beyond your five senses. Hearing, seeing, touching, smelling. I missed something. Anyway, it was a way to develop yourself as an instrument. Well, St. Francis said it a long time ago. Lord, make me an instrument of your peace. Well, I was looking through my notes, and I thought, aha, this is something basic to understand. Our Rudolf Steiner study group did this book a couple of years ago, and it offered these requirements or principles for the spiritual development of the individual. And I chose these because they're really quite straightforward. They appeal to your common sense. Steiner said, whatever you hear in his work, or really anyone's work, it must appeal to your common sense. If it doesn't, let it go. The first principle or requirement for spiritual development is that you turn your attention to the improvement of your physical and mental and spiritual health. Sound understanding, healthy experience occurs only in a healthy human being. So he found the spiritual path, one of the first steps is your willingness to make an effort to improve your physical, mental, and soul health. Well, that makes sense. How could one start a spiritual discipline or practice and give no concern to how you treat your body and exercise, diet, and more? So that's essential. The second requirement, here we go. The second requirement is that we feel ourselves to be a part of the whole of life. It is then but a small step to the insight that as a member of humanity as a whole, I am jointly responsible with all human beings for everything that happens. A principle of the responsibility of the individual. Now that might sound heavy until you realize, like Charles and Myrtle Fillmore did, hey, I'm a co-creator with God of this world. I play a part in this. To me, that's joyful, that's exciting. I can make a difference. Third requirement, that we win through. Now realize this is all translated from German, so sometimes the language sounds a little bit different. We win through to the conviction that thoughts and feelings are as important for the world as actions. Thoughts and feelings are as important to the world as actions. Charles Fillmore, in his way, liked to say everything begins in a thought. He would say, thoughts are creative. Thoughts think. As if thoughts are alive and creative. Feeling, emotion has power. Many people by the 20th century had been taught that thought and feeling is your private business. You don't talk about it, just keep it in here. It's not really real, it can't really do anything. For Steiner and for Fillmore, the thoughts you hold, the feelings that warm your soul, are as important as your outer actions. That was a key element to spiritual development. Our inner life is important, essential. It's not something we just don't talk about, we keep inside ourselves, and nobody will know what I'm thinking or feeling. It's important. The fourth requirement is that we acquire the conviction that our true nature does not lie out there, but in here. The fifth requirement, this is a good one. My common sense likes it. The fifth requirement is steadfastness, what Charles Fillmore called the power of strength, endurance, consistency, rhythm, steadfastness. We must follow through on a resolution once it has been made. Listen, nothing should lead us to abandon something we have started except the insight that we have made a mistake. I love it. If you say you're going to do something, carry through no matter what, unless that still small voice says, you know, that might be a mistaken idea. Carry through unless insight tells you to abandon the idea. The sixth requirement is that we develop the feeling of gratitude for all we receive. We should know that our very existence is a gift from the whole universe. Again, our mighty Steiner study group just finished a book that looks like a phone book. It took us 2 years, COVID got in the way, to finish. But it was about the creation, the universe, beyond anything you could imagine. But the essence we got out of it was to be grateful for our individual life because so much came together to make us even possible. You ever stop and think about that? I grew up in the me generation. I don't know about you, but a lot of focus on me. almost to the point of considering myself 100% created by James. We laugh, but if we look at how we think about ourselves, we may forget not only our family line, the society we live in, this earth, this solar system, the entire universe, and things we don't even know about have all worked together so Judy could be. Have all come together so that Timothy could have a life in this world. Steiner said, you must be grateful for that. You must recognize it. The seventh requirement is that we always understand life as these conditions, the previous six, demand, so that we have the stamp of unity on our life. Essentially, what he was saying is our life becomes coherent when we observe those first six principles. We aren't one person at work, another person at home, another person when we go into the voting booth, another person at Unity South. Our whole life takes on a stamp of unity or wholeness or completeness. I'm really on the last page, if I can just find it. Well, I'm missing a page, and that's probably for the best. So just to summarize these three incredible human beings, spiritual creations that we have looked at this month. Dr. King, his dream of the wholeness of the human family. That one day we would recognize that to such an extent that social injustice, violence in our communities would cease to exist because we would know each other as parts of a whole. And usually we don't go around hitting our toe with a hammer or breaking our hand or doing something harmful to what we consider as self. What if we saw the whole human family as oneself? Charles Fillmore, leading and creating and supporting an organization to help people awaken. As Myrtle said, I am a child of God. And Charles, we are co-creators with God. The individual working the infinite together. And then Dr. Steiner, as I only gave you a taste, essentially, my experience of his work and why it expressed in education, architecture, medicine. Oh, I didn't mention organic farming, known as biodynamic farming, the largest organic movement in the world. Even places here in Minnesota practice his principles of biodynamic farming. But all of those products came about because of his essential idea of how we prepare ourselves individually and as a community and a world for the source of all to work through us for the infinite to work through. So I invite you to join me in a time of quiet reflection, I'm going to use a verse I've used before. There's a prayer card in the rotunda. If you like it, you can pick one up. In the 19th century, it was translated from Sanskrit and thought to be thousands of years old. Dr. Steiner used it in his teaching, recommending it to every student to begin every day focusing on this verse. He called it a simple practice that awakens your I am, your highest truth, Spirit of you. So I invite you to close your eyes and allow these short lines to live in you. More radiant than the sun in its noontime glory. A radiance of spirit that permeates every aspect of my life. Purer than the untouched snow on the mountain peak. A purity of spirit that no circumstance in the world or my life can destroy. More subtle than the essence of material matter. A subtlety of spirit that no physical activity or fact can control. This radiance, this purity, this subtlety is the self, the I am, the spirit within my heart. In the highest truth, I am that self. That self am I. Infinite Spirit, we give thanks for your radiance, your glow of life within us, within each other, within all creation, and all yet to be created. So it is. I invite you, as you gradually allow your attention to take that amazing journey from your inner life back through your physical senses into this outer life we share. And in this transition, to always say, thank you, God, that you created us, you sustain us, and you have made us to be creative agents of good for our church, our community, and our world. Wow! World of wonder. Thanks be to God, the source of all. Amen. Well, thank you. And I invite David to share another gift of music, and as he does and the ushers come around, I invite you to just hold your gift, your contribution in your hand, and think for a moment of something special about our community here at Unity South that you value, that is meaningful and helpful to you, and that you're willing to share your contribution to sustain our community.
Tis the gift to be simple, tis the gift to be free, tis the gift to come down where we ought to be, And when we find ourselves in the place just right, 'twill be in the valley of love and delight. When true simplicity is gained, to bow and to bend we will not be ashamed. To turn will be our delight, and by turning, turning we come round right. Tis the gift to be simple, tis the gift to be free, tis the gift to come down where we ought to be. And when we find ourselves in the place just right, 'twill be in the valley of love and delight. Love. And when we find ourselves in the place just right, 'twill be in the valley of love, love and delight. Love, love and delight. Love, love and delight.
Thank you, David. That is a song that has taken me a while to find meaning. So thank you for bringing it to me again, because I heard it in a new way. To be simple is to know who I am and why I'm here. To know my attention, my intention, to align myself with it. So now, let's bless our offering. Howard, good to see you up here. They're always surprising me. So anyway, I invite you to join in the offertory blessing you find printed in your program, and we're still learning it because we modified it. So, recognizing the value of this spiritual community in my life, I affirm divine love flowing through me blesses and multiplies all the good I am and have, all the good I give and receive, and I am grateful. Thank you, my friends. Nicole's going to come forward and lead us in our closing song. Let's stand and sing the song we know so well, Let There Be Peace on Earth.
Let there be peace on earth
reminder, Prayer Chaplain Yvette Trotman is waiting back here in our meditation room. I encourage you, especially if you've never done it, to simply go up to a prayer chaplain today, Yvette, and say, pray with me. I'm changing jobs. I have a health issue. I'm celebrating an anniversary. Good or challenge, she will stand with you in holding your truth. It's a powerful experience. So now, let us pray together our prayer for protection. Together, the light of God surrounds us. The love of God enfolds us. The power of God protects us. The presence of God watches over us. Wherever we are, God is, and all is well. I invite you to enjoy visiting one another downstairs. I know there are good things waiting for us.